What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Warlocks. Thanks for checking out the video. I'm Profane, and today we'll be checking out the top 7 best Prismatic Warlock builds that you should be using right now. We've spent a good amount of time recently checking out all the different Prismatic Warlock builds that are currently available here in the final shape, and today we're going to be highlighting the best of those builds. The Prismatic subclass has really expanded our potential when it comes to build crafting, and not just because of the new exotic class items. This new class tree offers so many variations between its aspects, abilities, fragments, and how they all synergize with your weapon loadouts and playstyle. Whether you look at it in terms of ability regeneration, survivability, or damage output, Prismatic builds are far more superior than any standard Warlock build. Now, in saying that, there are a few exceptions to that statement, but those are very far and few between. And to that same token, not all Prismatic setups are going to perform at the same level, which brings us to covering the top 7 that will provide you with the highest levels of performance. We start our list off at number 7 with the Nezarec Sin Prismatic Warlock. Nezarec Sin is all about increasing your ability regeneration. Defeating enemies with void weapons or abilities generates a huge bonus in grenade, melee, class ability, and super energy. The Prismatic subclass already offers a ton of different ways to regenerate ability energy quickly, and it has Transcendency, which allows us to spam our abilities when active. So by using Nezarec Sin with a mixture of void abilities and void weapons, you'll kick that ability regeneration into overdrive. What's even sweeter about this setup is that with the use of Facet of Dominance, our void grenades will cause weakening effects. With the use of the Void Hegemony artifact mod, we'll gain an overshield when defeating weakened enemies. And because of Expanding Abyss, we'll deal bonus damage against weakened enemies with any of our void weapons or abilities, making the Nezarec Sin a perfect choice when jumping into legendary missions, nightfalls, and most any endgame level content. The only problem with this build is that it heavily relies on using void weapons and void abilities to be able to maximize on its ability regeneration, which can limit your loadouts when it comes to certain activities, and that's why the Nezarec Sin has landed in at the number 7 position. Coming in at number 6, we have the Fallen Sunstar. Like the Nezarec Sin, this exotic is all about ability regeneration, but it does it by increasing the amount of energy that's gained when collecting ionic traces. This significantly increases the uptime of class ability, melee, and grenade energy for not only its wielder, but for nearby allies as well. So the more ionic traces you generate, the more ability spamming you and your teammates are going to have. With the use of the Facet of Awakening, we'll generate ionic traces when we rapidly defeat enemies with arc abilities, and we'll have storm grenades and lightning surges at our disposal, on top of any weapons that might come with Volt Shot. You'll be able to cash in on the unique synergy that the Fallen Sunstar creates with the Cold Heart Trace Rifle or the Delicate Tomb Fusion Rifle, as both of these weapons create their own ionic traces, doubling down on the amount of energy that you'll be able to generate. Just like the Nezarec Sin, this build is heavily reliant on a specific element, and that limits its versatility in activities where arc energy might be less effective. It's still a tremendously powerful Prismatic build, but its application is just more limited when compared to other builds that are on this list. And now we move on to number 5, where we have the Necrotic Grips Exotic Gauntlets. This build amplifies your overall damage output by applying continuous poison damage onto your enemies, and when used with Prismatic, this can create devastating chain reactions. This is by far one of the easiest builds to use for Warlocks, since the Necrotic Poison will be cohesive with just about every Prismatic ability. The Spirit of the Necrotic is an available exotic class item perk, and it would pair up great with the Spirit of Claws or Spirit of Syntheseps, but the actual exotic will work out just as well, if not better, because it deals more overall poison damage. The Necrotic pairs exceptionally well with weapons like the Osteostriga, the Thorn, or Necrochasm, but it will also synergize very nicely with energy effects like Incandescent, Jolt, and Volatile. Even though this build is reliant on using melee abilities, the Prismatic subclass offers the versatility of having ranged melee options like Arcane Needles, which will see you having success with this build even when playing from a distance. Next up, we take a look at our number 4 build, which features the Apotheosis Veil. This can be ran in the form of its standard exotic helmet or through its exotic class item. Either option is going to give you instant ability regeneration whenever casting your super, and once your super has ended, you'll have an 8-second window to spam your melee and grenades. With the Prismatic subclass offering several different super, melee, and grenade options, there's several directions that we could go with this build and still have success. The synergy between Song of Flame is one of the most versatile options, since we'll have a powerful roaming super that grants bonus damage resistance and lets us use our weapons. And because of the rapid regeneration of abilities, we can quickly recharge our super and our transcendent energy, allowing us to chain those back to back to back. With all the extra grenades and melees that our super, Apotheosis Veil, and Transcendency offer, we can take advantage of weapons that come with Grave Robber or Demolitionist, so that we can automatically reload them in the middle of a damage phase. Since this build revolves around the use of our super, I would recommend that when using the exotic class item that you pair it with the Spirit of Star Eaters, so that your super will deal as much as 70% bonus damage. This build is most effective when used against raid and dungeon bosses, but it has enough versatility to where it can still be used in other activities. But because it doesn't provide any other passive benefits outside of its super activation, it does fall short of a top 3 nod. With that said, we now move into our top 3 best prismatic builds, and coming in at number 3 is the Speaker's Sight. I would go as far to say that this exotic performs the best when used on a solar build, but since it provides your entire team with a constant source of health recovery plus orb generation, this can be an invaluable option with the Prismatic subclass. Because of the rapid ability regeneration that our fragments and aspects are going to provide, we'll always have a healing turret at the ready. And unlike the complete support role that the solar variant creates, this prismatic version will still give you plenty of other abilities to be able to use against your opponents, no matter what the activity is. The Speaker's Sight pairs up especially well with exotics like the Lumina and the Red Death, but you'll get a lot of bonus damage when pairing it with a touch of Malice or Tommy's Matchbook. And by incorporating legendary weapons with Heal Clip, you'll expand on your ability to keep yourself and teammates alive in the most challenging of encounters. The only thing that holds this build back from a top 2 nod is that it's much more oriented towards team settings, which makes it much less effective when running activity solo. But even still, this is an extremely valuable build that will help you and your teammates stay alive. We now dip our toes into the top 2 builds, and at number 2, we take a look at the Dawn Chorus Prismatic Warlock. The Dawn Chorus amplifies Scorch damage from any source, giving all Scorch effects a 200% increase in damage, which helps this build excel with both burst and sustained damage scenarios, making it an extremely versatile build to use at any level of content. This exotic will be much more effective when used on a Daybreak solar build, but because of the rare combination of abilities, aspects, and fragments, it'll have some amazing synergy with Prismatic. Scorching enemies also generates bonus melee energy, which promotes us to use weapons with Incandescent, or exotics like the Sunshot, the Dragon's Breath, or Skyburner's Oath. Since the Facet of Courage causes our light abilities to deal bonus damage against enemies who are debuffed by darkness abilities, we have a great opportunity to inflict a lot of extra damage onto our enemies by using a mixture of solar, strand, and stasis effects. Stasis in particular will be the most beneficial, since we can use Facet of Ruin to increase the size and damage of ignitions and shattering effects, which make exotics like the Conditional Finality a great choice to use with this build. With our weapons, Song of Flame, and Halion buddies inflicting Scorch and creating ignitions, we can have Arcane Needles causing Unraveling, and Cold Snap Grenades causing enemies to freeze. This way we can take advantage of the bonus damage by Facet of Courage, making this an extremely effective build, no matter what the modifiers are. And with that, we move on to our number 1 best Prismatic Warlock, and there's no better choice than the Getaway Artist. This prismatic build is great at crowd control, it's great towards survivability, and you'll be able to crush your enemies with a variety of overpowered abilities. The Getaway Artist lets you consume your grenade energy to create an arc buddy that's going to continuously lay down a bed of fire against your enemies. This also activates the Amplified buff, so when using the Galvanic Armor artifact mod, in combination with a Facet of Protection, you're looking at a continuous source of bonus damage resistance. And since Feed the Void will keep us loaded up on grenade energy, we'll be able to trigger that damage resistance and that Arc Buddy at any moment. With the Bleak Watcher aspect, you'll have the added benefit of slowing and freezing targets, while your Arc Buddy continuously lights them up. And with fragments like Facet of Courage, your Arc Buddy and all of your other light-based abilities will deal bonus damage against those slowed and frozen enemies. Since this doesn't rely on any particular energy type, you'll have the freedom to change out your weapon loadouts as needed, without worrying about a dip in performance. So whether your playstyle is aggressive or passive, this will be a perfect build to get you through any level of content. And with that, we have now come to an end of today's video on the top 7 best Prismatic Warlock builds that you should be using right now. If your favorite build was not included in today's list, then be sure to let us know what that is and why it should have been on this list. Let us know down in the comments below. If you need help putting together any of these builds, then be sure to check out the Destiny item manager links that are down in the description. You can also visit my Mobalytics page, where you'll find all of these great builds and many more. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran, just looking for a new place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's also down in the description, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.